So, that saying, as within, so without.
Oh, wow.
So, what we get to do is we get to create that relationship with the sacred masculine so that it can be reflected without. So, you dig in deep to that relationship. What I do in Erogetics is I
Yeah.
teach women how to rekindle that romantic relationship with their sacred masculine, how to fall back in love, and how to really feel into the energy of that giddy schoolgirl, like, oh my gosh, he loves me, like,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
so excited. And when we can tap into that, what happens is that relationship is so pure and so unconditional and so loving. Because remember, this is
Yeah.
the divine in masculine form flowing through us. So it is the ultimate partnership. And everything next to that that is not enough is going to pale in comparison. So
It's
it's
gonna
like,
fall off, right? It's just not gonna be a match. Yeah.
right. So if you go on a date with someone and they don't treat you like your sacred masculine does, you've still got him at home. And so you get to kind of, and this is what I see a lot with women is women are trying to fit in the box of what they find a man and they go, okay, I like this guy. I want to land this guy. What do I need to do to land this guy? And then they try to make themselves everything that this guy needs, or this woman, if it's a woman, and then all of a sudden they lose everything that their list was, right? It's like, well,
Yeah.
he smokes. I don't care if he smokes. Like, look at him. I mean, he's gorgeous and he owns a jet and he this and he that. And so we throw all our stuff out the window. But if we are first in a relationship with
Yeah.
our inner masculine
Yeah.
and we have that already, then
Yeah.
everything outside gets to be a bonus. And instead of us looking for external validation from this guy or this client or this job or this cat or whatever, now we're creating that validation internally between that balance of sacred and of masculine and feminine. And we're exuding magnetism, the likes of which you've never seen. I mean, like, you all of a sudden, people are like, hi, how are you? Can I hold the door for you? Would you like some money? Like, how do I, like,
Yeah.
everything in your life
Yeah.
converges on you to shower you with attention and love and all the things because you don't need it anymore. Because you're no longer broadcasting that signal of scarcity. You're broadcasting a signal of fullness.
Yeah. Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Through the Magical Door. I'm your host, Samaya Adeling, and I am here with a very special guest. Her name is Amy Lee Westervelt, and we are going to be having a very exciting conversation today that I can't wait to share with you. Amy Lee is a mystic. She's an intuitive mentor who empowers women by unlocking the transformative power of divine union. Through her pioneering work in erogetics, she helps individuals alter deep-seated beliefs and harness feminine energetics to achieve both personal and professional fulfillment. As a coach, Amy Lee is dedicated to guiding high-achieving women to thrive in their businesses and their personal lives, leveraging a blend of spiritual insight and practical strategy. Her approach not only inspires, but also creates significant breakthroughs, positioning her as a leader in spiritual and business growth. So, Amy Lee, thank you so much for being here. I can't tell you how excited I am to be having a chat with you today.
Oh, and I'm so grateful to be having this chat too. So thank you so much for having
No,
me.
it's a real pleasure. So, Amy Lee, I've got quite a bunch of things I would love to uh, chat to you about. But first of all, I really like to get to know people well and to get a sense of if you were to share about your life, maybe what in your life, your path and your journey has kind of led you into the work you're currently doing. I'd love to know a little bit more about that if you'd like to share.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy story. But basically what it comes down to is I am a Scorpio stellium. So like most of my planets hang out in Scorpio. So intensity is my thing, right?
Yeah.
Like when it comes to love and romance and all those things, it has to be like all or nothing. Like I'm the, wear a vial of my blood around your neck kind of a gal. And so, I had a whirlwind romance with my husband when we first met. That's a story for another day. Because if we tell it, it'll take up the whole time. So,
Sure.
but I had an incredible start with my husband, and things were really great. And then, we ended up getting really financially uh, successful. And because of that, like, business kind of took a front seat, and
Right.
our relationship sort of fell by the wayside. So when that happened, luckily I was introduced to, I had never read the books, but I saw the movie 50 Shades of Grey. And when I watched that movie, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what's been missing. I have been in the driver's seat of our relationship. I've been in
Right.
this masculine energy. Like, I needed to kind of take a step back and be in this feminine essence. And if you guys are tuning out, like, stay tuned, because there's going to be a twist here in a second. So, we adopted more of this, like, dominant submissive lifestyle, and it worked really, really well for us. I love being the boss in my business, and I love not having to worry about making decisions or doing things when it comes to personal life, right? So
Yeah.
things were fantastic. I was making the money, giving it to him. He was choosing what to do with it. This was fantastic. One of the things that my husband decided to undertake was a 40-day fast. So he was doing some work in alchemy and hermetics, and he just decided to do this ordeal where he was going to do a 40-day water fast.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, great. You're going to lose weight, whatever you're doing, you're
Right.
getting right with yourself. This is wonderful. But it was not because what happened was I was so dependent on his energy and so dependent on him telling me what to do and where to go and all this stuff, in our personal life. And hey, it works for us. Then all of a sudden he completely receded into himself. It was like he was the monk on the top of the mountain.
Wow.
And all of that energy that I was getting, all of that feedback, all of that attention, that what do they call it? Over the top masculine, right?
Right.
That I loved so much, kind of just,
Kind of
and I
when,
was, what happened? How do you go from being in essentially a BDSM relationship to all
yeah.
of a sudden not having
Yeah.
that? And so, I adore my husband to the moon and back. He's the hottest thing I ever saw. He's my best friend. So there wasn't an option of like, oh, let me go find someone else. We have
Of
five
course.
children together. We have a beautiful life together. And so I went a little crazy, Samaya, and
Mm.
I started, when I would go to bed at night, instead of him cuddling me and he was just, he'd roll over and go to sleep. Like, he couldn't wait for another day of fasting to be over, especially at the beginning. And I felt so alone. And I started to almost like invent this partner in my mind that I would go hang out with at night when I would go to sleep. I would like, I remember he was almost like one of the newsies. He had like a little paid, newsboy hat. He was probably like 19 or 20. And I would imagine that I would come out of my house, which was like the day, and I would come out and I would hang out with him, and we'd walk around and I'd tell him about my night or my day or whatever. And I would share everything with him. And I started to feel really filled up by this relationship I had created with this
Wow.
visible friend of mine. So that went on for quite a while. Oh, it's 1:11. And
Mm.
when so that went on for quite a while, and then it started to get like stronger. And I felt like, you know, I could talk to this energy. Like, during the day, I'd be alone and I'd be like, oh, I feel so. And he'd be like, what's wrong? Like, what's going on? Talk to me. And I thought I was going crazy, but I was like, I don't care. Like, if it's between going crazy and hearing voices or breaking up my marriage, I'm going to go with this any day. So it just,
Wow.
this conversations and all this stuff. And by the time my husband's fast ended, instead of me feeling resentful and like, you left me and da 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 da, and all about me and all about the way that it made me feel, I was so filled up that I was able to welcome him with open arms and be like, so how was it? Like, what was it like? And he was
Wow.
back and we had everything again. And I noticed that that relationship with that energy didn't go away. I looked for it. I was excited to go to bed. I couldn't wait to have these conversations. So I started to do some research and figure this out and like, what is this? Where is this coming from? And it turned out that I had stumbled on something really profound without knowing it that goes back thousands and thousands of years. And what I had essentially done was I had tapped into my sacred masculine lover. I had tapped into the energy of the divine that
Yeah.
flows through me that is in relationship with me.
Oh, wow.
And it was, and it is, because he's still here. It was the most incredibly profound love that I've ever, the most unconditional love that I've ever felt in my life. But what it didn't take me away from my romantic relationship. It
It
set me
strengthened it.
be complete because this is my completion versus my partner who's my complement. So now I am this whole woman, right? Who is a all woman who can then come into my relationship with my partner with all of me intact. I'm not coming to him at the end of the night
Yeah.
like this happened and fix me and da, 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 like that's part of the reason why the romance goes away in relationships because we expect each other to like fix each other and we're two pieces
Absolutely.
of china trying to make a teapot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And creating actually the energetic space that that reality can be experienced. And it might not be in the kind of shape and form that we expect. It might not come directly from the partner. But you actually just, I loved you sharing this story. And you actually answered one of my questions around us finding the divine masculine within ourselves, tapping into the archetype. What's the effect that can have with either a current partner? I'm not in a partnership. I'm looking to manifest. I'm sort of like in that space of manifesting my divine partner. So I'm kind of, I was curious, how does that affect it, right? And you've just answered that. Just for a little bit of context, how long have you been married and how long have you been with your partner, with your husband?
So this year in November will be 13 years.
13 or 30? 13. Yeah,
13.
of course. No, yeah, of course, that would be weird if it was
Got
30.
married when I
Okay,
was
so
12.
that's a significant amount of time, right? So to have, yeah. So tell me now, having heard this, that sounds really juicy. And I love that you also immediately by sharing what you shared, you've given permission to so many women to already start tapping into the divine masculine as opposed to just waiting for the husband to show up with those qualities. So I think that's really potent in itself. Tell me now, as you've been in that process, and when was it that you started tapping into that energy of the divine masculine? How long ago was that?
It's probably 2 summers ago now.
Right.
It was when my husband did his water fast. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
been pretty awesome since.
Wow. Amazing. So what I want to know from what you shared, how has that impacted your relationship and the dynamic with your partner? Did you tell him about it? What does he, obviously, I'm guessing you have, but tell me how that's affected the dynamic and what's been the growth since.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing to remember here is you know how when you have a business or sorry, you have a job and you pay taxes and they take the taxes out before you ever see your paycheck, right? Like you
Yeah.
don't even have to worry about seeing that money. It's gone before you even see it.
Yeah.
That's the way that the relationship with the sacred masculine is. He takes his before you ever are with your partner. So it's not taking away from your romantic relationship. And my husband absolutely is very well aware of my inner masculine, and he loves it because, like I said, he get you. So when you first start dating, and maybe your partner has an apartment or something, and it's filthy or whatever, you don't care. You're just like, whatever. Let me clean it. Let me put my
Yeah.
little apron. I'm like, oh, you have socks on the floor. I don't care. Let's fuck. Like it doesn't matter. Like you don't
Yeah.
care.
You just,
But then
yeah.
you get into a partnership where you're co-owning things and you're cohabitating in energy. And now all of a sudden it's like this person is expected to make you whole. There's a resentment that builds up there.
Yeah.
It just does. Like, what if I'm having a bad day? What if I'm stressed out? What if I'm not responsible
Yeah.
for completing you? And so
Mm.
this is why when I said, don't tune out yet, we have, we have two different sides of this spectrum. We've got the women that are, the pink pussy hat wearing ones that are like, I don't need a man and I'll be fine by myself. And then we've got the other side, which are the trad wives that are like, keep sweet and just do whatever your husband says. And like,
Sure.
I came from that. But there's like a happy medium between
Yeah.
the two. like I am an empowered woman. I do, I am the, when I look at myself in the archetype of the queen, right? Like
Yeah.
I have a throne next to the sacred masculine, but
Yeah.
I'm a leader in my own right. I
Yeah.
have my own
Yes.
domain. I
Yeah.
have the things that I oversee. Now I choose to defer to that masculine because I've deemed him the leader. I said, I trust you to lead, but I can take that away at any time if he doesn't, if he can't be the leader anymore. I can,
Absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. I love this, as a, and this is going to be one of the things I wanted to ask you, for us women who are so self-sourced, who are kind of activated in our own being, for women who are not in a partnership so far, right? Like at the moment, and they want to attract the divine partner and they want the happy medium, like that you talked about. How, as a sort of activated, self-sourced woman, how do we sort of project or magnetize, I guess, a protector, divine counterpart that can meet us in that sort of queen energy? Um, I know you've been in a process of finding it whilst in that relationship, right? So for some of, like for a lot of the women that you're serving, some of my audience, myself included, I'd love to know, how do we sort of prepare that space if we want to sort of like go kind of like reverse engineer the process a little bit? Can you tell us a little bit about how we go about the process of like becoming that magnet for that kind of match?
Absolutely. So, you know that saying, as within, so without.
Oh, wow.
So, what we get to do is we get to create that relationship with the sacred masculine so that it can be reflected without. So, you dig in deep to that relationship. I mean, what I do in Erogetics is I
Yeah.
teach women how to rekindle that romantic relationship with their sacred masculine, how to fall back in love, and how to really feel into the energy of that giddy schoolgirl, like, oh my gosh, he loves me, like,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
so excited. And when we can tap into that, what happens is that relationship is so pure and so unconditional and so loving. Because remember, this is
Yeah.
the divine in masculine form flowing through us. So it is the ultimate partnership. And everything next to that that is not enough is going to pale in comparison. So
It's
it's like,
gonna fall off, right? It's just not gonna be a match. Yeah.
right. So if you go on a date with someone and they don't treat you like your sacred masculine does, you've still got him at home. And so you get to kind of, and this is what I see a lot with women is women are trying to fit in the box of what they find a man and they go, okay, I like this guy. I want to land this guy. What do I need to do to land this guy? And then they try to make themselves everything that this guy needs, or this woman, if it's a woman, and then all of a sudden they lose everything that their list was, right? It's like, well, I don't, oh, he smokes. I don't care if he smokes. Like, look at him. I mean, he's gorgeous and he owns a jet and he this and he that. And so we throw all our stuff out the window. But if we are first in a relationship with
Yeah.
our inner masculine
Yeah.
and we have that already, then
Yeah.
everything outside gets to be a bonus. And instead of us looking for external validation from this guy or this client or this job or this cat or whatever, now we're creating that validation internally between that balance of sacred and of masculine and feminine. And we're exuding magnetism, the likes of which you've never seen. I mean, like, you all of a sudden, people are like, hi, how are you? Can I hold the door for you? Would you like some money? Like, how do I, like,
Yeah.
everything in your life converges on you to shower you with attention and love and all the things because you don't need it anymore, because you're no longer broadcasting that signal of scarcity. You're broadcasting a signal of fullness.
Yeah, and you know what I love about this? Because I think this is what I'm doing at the moment, what you're describing. What I love about this is that you don't have to postpone, experience that pleasure and that joy from being with that divine partner, right? Because you're already being that, you already initiated that relationship. It's already happening. So it's kind of like rather than extending or kind of projecting the power out there, you're actually becoming magnetic by being it, and you're just letting it vibrate stronger and stronger. And it's something that you can keep on building as well, right? Like as you're in your space, creating that sacred energy within yourself. Now, I love that so much, and I love that you're using a process to really support women in that and really guide women in that. I'd love to know from the current women you're serving, um, maybe what do you find to be some of the patterns and energetic blocks or mindset block or whatever that they're experiencing from becoming the magnetic and being that in their lives already. I'd love to know what your experience has been so far. And I'll share with you what I find. I'm with a different, obviously, sort of um, type of group I serve, but I will share with you something that I noticed that has been a big focus of my alignment method and on my alignment work. But I'm curious to see what you found so far in your work.
I think that there are different archetypes within the women that I serve. We've got the archetype of the married woman who feels like her partner, she's not in love with him anymore. Sorry, she loves him. She's not in love with him anymore. And she doesn't feel that romantic spark. And there's this resentment of like, why can't he just? Why can't he just be more masculine? Why can't he just pick up his socks? Why can't he just sweep me off my feet like he did at the beginning? So that's one. Then we've got kind of like the jaded supermodel one, which is like, I am so gorgeous and I've done so much with my life and I am just such a gift to society that like a man needs to be enough for me. And so we've got her as well.
Yeah.
And then we've kind of got that middle ground energy of the girl who's like, well, I don't have a partner yet. And I don't think I'm the bee's knees, but I feel like I'm always at the beck and call of whatever, whatever guy comes along. It's like, yes, he's the one. Okay, great. Let me rearrange myself into a pretzel to do everything that I need to do. So I think that really like the main themes that flow through this are external validation is a
Yeah.
really big one. Like
Yeah.
not being able to feel like mindfulness is enough, not being able to sit. And that's why one of the main processes of my work is called the erogetic breath, where I literally show women how to bring that masculine energy into their bodies in a mindful practice, just to sit and flow with it, to just be in the moment. Because so many women are like, okay, I'm clearly not happy because I don't have this coming in, or I don't have that. And I'm like, are you? If you
Yeah.
stop and sit and
Postponing the process.
exactly, yeah. So I'm anxious to hear though what your experience is like.
It's actually, it's a very interesting thing. So on a sort of from an energetic perspective, the common pattern has been that women are energetically leaking everywhere. So they are being the servants of their families, they are being the servants in the professions and jobs, they overgiving, they're overextending, and they leave themselves last. And this type of energetic leaking, it can come from different places, other societal conditioning, parental sort of like patterns from their own mom and dad, all that kind of stuff. But what tends to happen is that I've never not seen that happening in my client work. And what's very interesting is that there's a major issue with boundaries around that, right? So when we're energetically leaking, our boundaries are askew. So as part of my method with Astia, what we do is we address that. We address that from creating, first of all, sacred space is really important for intentionality, right? For things to really work, we really need to understand sacred space is important to create shift and change. And then we really start to get energetically very like congruent and honest with where we are really. And that's really, to be honest, the big part of my work is really kind of calibrating the part of your compass that's not really connecting with your yes and your no. Like if our yes and our no is all over the place, if we're not trusting it, how are we going to create anything? How are we going to set the right boundaries? How are we even going to get real with our intentions, right? So then we kind of revolve around this trio of like energetic congruence and honesty, getting radically honest with ourselves, with our energy, not with our minds, not with what our minds tells us we should do and how we should do it, what our energy is craving, because energy never lies, right? Our mind can tell us a bunch of stuff. So then we create this sacred space, and that kind of thing with the boundaries, my processes helps women really kind of bring those boundaries, really shift them. And I promise you, Emily, this process, it never like it always seems to be up to 3 months. The women, the boundaries is when they start to shift. and with all the processes we do. And then when the kind of energy comes back to us, it's like, oh, you mean I'm the deliberate co-creator? Oh, you mean like I'm the one that can really like manifest and do things? And it's like that's when we can start creating from there. That's when we can start coming into alignment, because those really basic things like are now being taken care of. We're not overextending. And even if that means for a while being in that gap of like, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to do now. Who am I? So that identity shift and crisis, it's huge. It's really important. It's really to celebrate. And then it's kind of, I guess, we start to look at how we can master our energy more, how we can be a little bit more kind of, I don't want to say in control of our energy, but more like in a way, more in the driving seat and more like working well with it, so we can be deliberate creators. So definitely boundaries and energetic leaking has been the number one thing, consistent. And and it's like, how are we going to become intentional? How are we going to create the momentum, build whatever that might be in our relationships, professionally, whatever, when that energy keeps on being diluted? And yeah, so that's kind of similar. And often validation is a big thing around this, right? Like, we can sort of unpack then all that and see what's going on. And that's when we can start reprogramming the new ways.
To your point, when you're talking about boundaries, I think that's one of the biggest things when you were asking about like what are the effects of this. So that saying, as within, so without.
Oh, wow.
So what we get to do is we get to create that relationship with the sacred masculine so that it can be reflected without. So you dig in deep to that relationship. I mean, what I do in Erogetics is I
Yeah.
teach women how to rekindle that romantic relationship with their sacred masculine, how to fall back in love, and how to really feel into the energy of that giddy schoolgirl, like, oh my gosh, he loves me, like,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
so excited. And when we can tap into that, what happens is that relationship is so pure and so unconditional and so loving. Because remember, this is
Yeah.
the divine in masculine form flowing through us. So it is the ultimate partnership. And everything next to that that is not enough is going to pale in comparison. So
It's
it's
gonna
like,
fall off, right? It's just not gonna be a match. Yeah.
right. So if you go on a date with someone and they don't treat you like your sacred masculine does, you've still got him at home. And so you get to kind of, and this is what I see a lot with women is women are trying to fit in the box of what they find a man and they go, okay, I like this guy. I want to land this guy. What do I need to do to land this guy? And then they try to make themselves everything that this guy needs, or this woman, if it's a woman, and then all of a sudden they lose everything that their list was, right? It's like, well, I don't, oh, he smokes. I don't care if he smokes. Like, look at him. I mean, he's gorgeous and he owns a jet and he this and he that. And so we throw all our stuff out the window. But if we are first in a relationship with
Yeah.
our inner masculine
Yeah.
and we have that already, then
Yeah.
everything outside gets to be a bonus. And instead of us looking for external validation from this guy or this client or this job or this cat or whatever, now we're creating that validation internally between that balance of sacred and of masculine and feminine. And we're exuding magnetism, the likes of which you've never seen. I mean, like, you all of a sudden people are like, hi, how are you? Can I hold the door for you? Would you like some money? Like, how do I, like,
Yeah.
everything in your life
Yeah.
converges on you to shower you with attention and love and all the things because you don't need it anymore, because you're no longer broadcasting that signal of scarcity. You're broadcasting a signal of fullness. If you know that you are unconditionally loved, I mean, imagine there is an energy that is so head over heels, devoted, obsessed, in love with you, but has also seen every time you picked your nose, every time you picked your wedge, every mean thing you ever said about someone, every time you squished an ant by accident, like, even with your significant other, there's this there's this idea that there's some part of you that they just don't know. And if they knew that part, that maybe they wouldn't love you the way they did, right? There was when we were first dating, I told so and so that I didn't think he was that cute. Like, we carry these nano pockets of guilt around with us.
Yeah.
But when it comes to that inner other, there's nothing.
Yeah.
But there is no way to
Yeah.
hide from
Yeah.
that energy. And knowing that no matter what you do, you cannot lose that love, it makes it really hard for you to follow the constraints of all the ways that you could lose that love externally.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So
Oh,
like
absolutely.
you're like, "Oh, you're not gonna like me if I do that? Well, then I don't need you because I know what it feels like to be unconditionally loved."
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is truly the essence of the divine, right? The divine is love
It's
at
that.
its core.
Yeah.
And so that, I just wanted to add that.
I love that. I love that you sort of basically from what you're describing, you're creating a sacred path for women, essentially, really. I mean, it's a sacred path for, coming in connection to this divine masculine, whatever, feminine, whatever the preference, right? Oh no, well, you're making it clear, it's the divine masculine, but it's like, in essence, it is a connection with the divine, isn't it? It's a connection with the divine, and it's the pathway to that that really opens up a connection to our own deeper essence. Um,
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
that's what it is, right? So if we think about the fact that we are all consciousness, having a human experience, if you look back at, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, if you haven't read it, and I don't mean you because I'm sure you have, but if you
so
guys haven't read it, I highly recommend you do. One of the things that she says that, that Christ said, and being Jewish, it's really funny that I refer to the Christ, but here we are. One of the things that she said is that he said the only sin is not knowing that you are. The
Mm,
only sin is not acknowledging the divinity that flows through you, to literally thumb your nose and say, "Oh, that's not me. That's not me. I didn't make this world. I didn't create this. I didn't do this. That wasn't me." When you take your hands off the creative process and say that you're not part of that. And for me, that was so profound to understand that, like, we are divinity having a human
okay.
experience. And
Sorry.
so let me just finish this one thought and then you
Oh
can
no,
go.
please. Yeah, yeah. My next thing came up, but yeah.
Okay, good. And so we are a divinity having a human experience, but divinity is comprised of, or rather, we are comprised of divinity and all human. So when we are feminine, when we are females, our human is the female energy and our divine is the masculine energy, and they come together to create divine union. We are all of both. Now, we can't animate the energy of both at the same time, no more than you could
Yeah,
drive two cars at the same time. They may still
yeah,
belong to you, but you can't drive them both. So we are feeling the energy of the feminine while we are being observed and devoted by the masculine, which is the divinity that flows through us that we don't have the consciousness to understand is
yeah.
also us. So, like, how's that for mind?
Absolutely. I love this so much. You know what? There's times when I wake up in the morning, I just feel so like my energy feels like so high and so kind of like I feel so devoured by the divine, if you like, right? And I notice the energy that that gives out in the world, in masculine, feminine, whatever. Now, here's what I want to ask you though, right? And here's one of the things I'm noticing. Like I'm not like on any dating apps and stuff. I just gave it to God and I said to the divine, and I said, I want to meet my divine masculine. I think you're gonna do a better job than me. Quite frankly, the limitations I bring to the table, I think I'm gonna leave it to you for now. So please, you do the work on this. I am here. Ideally, I don't want to even leave the garden because it's spring and summer. It's a beautiful garden. If you could just somehow show up, I'd love that. But here's what I want to ask you. I find myself in this place where, how do we do it? Do sort of keep on allowing this energy? Because sometimes it's growing so strong and I feel like, what's next? And I see that having a really beautiful ripple, but how, like, do we do it in a way where like whatever doesn't feel a match? Say I've been on a couple of dates a few months ago and I felt like, oh wow, this is just so not, it's so much less. You know what I mean? How do we do it in a way? I don't want to castrate a man, you know what I mean? I don't want to like overwhelm, like not one overwhelm them, but I noticed there was an occasion where it had such a detrimental effect my power, my energy, my femininity, that I felt like, dude, like what's going on here? Like I left him to it, but it's like, how do we navigate through this process? And I guess what I'm sharing here is like women handling the power, right? And that opening that keeps on happening, that keeps on evolving, that is oozing all this like beautiful juiciness, right? But how do we do it in a way where the blokes don't get like, dude, like, you know what I mean? Because there's moments, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to have a chat with an ascension coach. There's a moment, as much as we say, well, we know we're elevating, we're doing all this work, but there's moments where that vulnerability, that sensitivity, that kind of like the wounding will come up for everyone, masculine, feminine, right? So there's this navigation, all these women exploding into their goddess feminine energy, meeting the divine masculine. How do we do this in a way where the actual divine masculines on the 3D physical level don't get totally like, what am I doing here? Like, can I even like connect with her? Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
like they might get overwhelmed, like men listening to this conversation, for instance. How do we say, come on in, like it's fine. Like you can ask us out. You can, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that it starts with the universe, right? Like, so if
Mhm.
you imagine that the universe is your super hot billionaire boyfriend, and
Mhm.
so how do you start to create that relationship first? Because that's really what it is. What we're talking about with the sacred masculine, we're talking about the divine masculine, we're talking about the energy of the provider. We're talking about, baby, you tell me what you want and I will manifest it. When women talk about manifesting, I'm like, you mean your partner is manifesting, right? Because the energy, the masculine energy is the manifester. And
Yes,
I
yes,
actually
yes.
channeled a whole, I only made a digital version, but I channeled a whole affirmation deck from the sacred masculine. And one
Oh,
of the things that he said to me was, like, painting the zebras and, figuring out what colors the fish were and all that stuff. You don't remember doing that, but I was there and you did. And so acknowledging that the divine feminine that flows through us, the creative energy, the energy of the Sophia, the wisdom, of the ages, like that is in us as well. That is the feminine side of what we bring to the table, right? So when you think of her, you being in relationship with the universe, it makes a lot more sense. And so it's like when you're practicing that internal relationship, you don't have to have these conversations with the men. You don't have to have this part isn't for them. Because remember, they are the physical representation
yeah,
of the relationship you're having inside. So
absolutely.
when you get into a physical relationship with a wonderful man, my husband and I, we absolutely, sex magic, like really enacting that the divine masculine in me, that he is being the surrogate for that. And you
Beautiful.
can get there. That is definitely on the path if you want it. But when you're at the very beginning of this, you're not trying to think, okay, how can I look for a man who has like a
No,
crown of light over his head? It's like, okay, this guy over here that I was dating, he bugs me for some reason. Why does he bug me? Well, he just never stopped talking. Okay, so where inside of myself am I chastising myself for
yes.
seeking?
I thank you for doing this. Thank you for bringing it back to how I'm putting myself out there that would create that sort of connection, because that sort of dynamic, because I think it was easy to want to like look at it as like, how do we not scare them? But in a way, it's kind of like you're saying, well, where do you scare yourself with your power, if that's the case, right? It's like, because it really is a mirroring, isn't it? Like
It
essentially, it shouldn't be an
is,
issue.
because they
Um,
you. They are you. Remember, if we're looking at it as a consciousness, I'm you,
mhm,
right? There are things that you're like, gosh, that girl is so smart. You're only saying that because you see that in you. You
mm,
couldn't see that in me if it wasn't in you. Do you see
mhm.
what I mean?
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, I love this. I love
Yeah.
this.
So, oh, go ahead.
I know, I love this very much. It really does come back to us and kind of really understanding the energy and where the sort of blocks are and feeling into them. I think that's where the work has been for me a lot the last couple of, years. And actually, even to be honest, even the dates that I went where I felt these men were looking at limitations, I thought, hang on a minute, I don't feel like I'm experiencing this limitation myself. Why am I seeing that? I actually think it was a good preparation ground for me
It's
having
not
that.
actually, okay. So I'm glad you brought
Yeah.
this up. It's not a limitation, it's an insecurity. If
Right.
you have an insecurity about something, they can sometimes pick up on that. So
Mm.
it's not
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
about you. You're like, what am I bringing to the table? Oh gosh, I hope he likes me. So that's the energy of, please give me some of your energy. Whereas it's like, I have all the energy in the world. Would you like to
Well,
experience it?
can I give you an example? I totally hear what you're saying. So for instance, for me, I felt like, I really want to be to meet my best friend and a partner that we can share together. The word synergy keeps on coming up. I see synergy possibly with work. I see synergy in all areas of life, blending of families, blending of everything, right? Like it's really important to me. And I met a guy who was, we're talking about like months ago, like it's like just for 5 minutes, there was nothing, 2 dates or something. And I was like, and he was seeing it like he had come out of a very long relationship with somebody who had a child, for instance, right? And he was seeing it, he felt quite unintegrated. And I didn't feel was so unintegrated in that sense of like, well, he was talking to me about the different types of love. And you've got the familiar love and you've got the erotic love. And he was seeing the potential new partner like basically more as a sex partner. And he was trying to make a thing about it. And I said, like, it's interesting. Like he didn't really necessarily, he wanted to have his situation there. He had to have another situation there. And of course, by all means, you don't end your connections just because you have a new partner. But it didn't sound he was keen to integrate. And for me, I was like, well, hang on, I'm kind of looking for someone that wants to have it all, because I feel like I'm bringing it all to the table. So it's probably not for me. And then he worked out, well, his plan is to go and live abroad with his friends and open a retreat center. And so, well, okay, then it's not a long-term plan. So I'm out of the picture. This is not for me. So do you know what I mean? It was this sense of like there's this is there and this is there and this is there, and I felt like, no, I want one big whole chaos, like I'm the whole big chaos, and I'm like, and this is all. And I wasn't like looking to be liked by him. He wasn't even necessarily somebody I really felt we gelled in so much. I was just happy to just get to know a human being and whatever came from it, but I was really not open to.
Exception. You're
Huh?
the exception. You're the exception.
Right.
You have to remember, you've done so much of the energy work and
i
you've
think
done so
i
much of
think i
the work.
have I think I
So it's
have.
not everybody's going to have that situation. A
No.
lot of people be like, I need to move. I need to figure it out. Like, oh my gosh, can I handle him seeing other girls too? Maybe I could. Maybe I'd be okay with that. I probably would. I mean, I love him so much. Like, that's the way
Yeah,
that.
no, and I was like, and then he was really surprised to say, you know what? I don't think this is kind of for me. I think you're a great guy. I just don't think that we gel or we want similar things. And I didn't have a problem with that at all. But it was interesting because then he was trying to up the volume to try and sort of sort things out. And I felt like I just don't think it's for me, and that's what I mean about a little bit of the testing, to maybe see actually, you know what, it's, yeah, no, I'm good wanting the things I want, I'm not ready to compromise them, right?
Another component of this, though, that might
Yeah.
be the other side of it. So when we talk about shadow work, whenever people talk about the shadow, what they're really talking about is their sacred masculine or their sacred feminine. Because if you think about it, I just want to show you something really cool.
Yeah,
If you are divinity, if you are consciousness, then you're everything. You're good, you're bad, you're evil, you're
absolutely.
whatever. So if I was to say to you, wow, you look really masculine, you would be offended by that because you want to be feminine. There is a whole aspect of you that is masculine, right? Probably, if you're a mother, then it's nurturing
Oh,
energy, but
absolutely.
you would be offended by that because that's a part of you that you don't want the world to see. You would think
Right.
like, oh gosh, did I shave my legs today? Do I not have makeup on? Like, you would find all of the darkness that that word means. So when we talk about the shadow, we're talking about this partner, this inner lover who
Yeah.
is literally so devoted that would burn down the world for you. Like, your needs are paramount to everyone else's. And he doesn't care what you've done, what you haven't done, who you were with, as long as you love me. No, I'm kidding. But he he has this energy of like, it doesn't matter. You are the world for me. That can be really uncomfortable as a woman to embrace that
Yeah,
there is something that loves you so deeply, that accepts your fear, that accepts your sadness, that accepts your hopes, your dreams, your fears, your the time you did this bad thing.
it's
It's
true.
very
It's true.
hard to
I
connect to that energy.
Yeah.
And so if you're having trouble with that in here, how the hell are you going to reflect a partner who's going to be selfless and unconditional and all of those things if you're in resistance to that from the beginning?
I think that's a really good one, Amy Lee, and I think it's good for all of us to integrate this a bit. I think it's definitely touching on something really important here. It definitely resonates with me as well. It is a big deal. It is a big deal. And I think that mentally is one thing, how we process that mentally, but another thing on a pure, true visceral level, right? To really that to hone in, that you can have that sort of love, especially, for somebody like me who's been like this, like super mom, like for years, like single mom, taking care of things and all that. It's like in a way, like, why would they even like, what is it even that they need to offer me? Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you can go like that. Yeah, I
And
hear you.
if you think about love and love in the divine form, what we're going for is self-emptying love. Self-emptying love is the love that you feel that you almost it hurts you love so much. Like it's like that vulnerable, like the way I feel about my mom. When I think about my mom, like I get chest pains from it because I'm broken open by how much I love my mom, right? And so that is the love that your divine masculine has for you. And it's uncomfortable. I mean, that feeling of being like pouring out all the love, like it's just, it comes in, it goes right back out. It comes in, it goes right back out. And so when you get to this place internally in that self emptying love for yourself, but really for your divine masculine, and there's all kinds of pieces of this, now all of a sudden you're a match for this self-emptying love externally, and now you're finding a soulmate who will literally die for you. Now you're finding the energy of the person who looks into your eyes after 50 years together and sees the 21-year-old you, the one who literally holds your head in their hands and kisses you and feels like they're in the Garden of Eden. This is the energy we're looking for, but we have to create it internally in order to find it external. I know it is really deep.
I was also going to say, have you thought about writing some like fiction? Or
I
not necessarily just fiction, but why not?
am in the process of writing a book
Oh,
uh,
beautiful.
under a pen name, yes, about this very thing and about this internal relationship that reflects the
Well,
external.
then let me ask you this. Are you writing this as a fiction, or are you writing it as a sort of self-help book, or sort of sacred sexuality? Kind of, what's the kind of genre? I'm curious. Because
I'm writing,
I find
I'm writing,
interesting genres, how we want to tell a story and how we want to frame it through the genre. I think it's interesting.
I'm writing it as an erotic fiction novel, as a matter of fact.
I don't know why. I was thinking you could go into the sacred sexuality arena, but there's something about, first of all, I think I truly believe we learn through metaphor. I think, storytelling is really huge for our learning and our growth, but it kind of felt like it's going to tap into so many more women will kind of read it. I think that maybe those who might not go for sacred sexuality as well. So I think it's a very wise choice, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. The more I have these conversations, the more, because I'm a generator, right? So the more it gets pulled
Right.
out of me, the more it shapes itself. And the more, my guides come in to be like, oh, and here's another way to say it. And here's another piece of this. And it's been such a beautiful unfolding.
Mhm.
I believe this is the work that I was probably doing in the Middle Ages. And it probably, in fact, I have a slight regression where I this very thing. This is so just to freak everyone out even more. This is actually the relationship that Jesus and Mary Magdalene had. This divine union. It was the connection of connections because they connected internally first to their God self, and then they were able to create that together in sacred union or holy matrimony, right? But to tell that in the 1500s and the 1200s would have been certain death. Today, we're very lucky that we live in a society where you don't get stoned to death or burned at the stake for sharing this information, although a lot of people do still try to keep it out of public, public consumption. But what's interesting is many, many people are being born in this generation with this wisdom already. Like we're channeling this information. And again, this goes back to the temples of Inanna. This goes back to, Hieros Gamos, the word for holy matrimony, is
Of
an
course.
ancient Greek word. So
Yeah.
we're not talking about new age stuff that's like, hey, let me put these
No,
things.
it's steeped in tradition and an incredible legacy, spiritual legacy that goes eons, right? I'm Greek, by the way, so just that's my background, you know. And you know what I love from, and I'm aware of the time and everything.
No,
I
I wish I could talk to you all day
I
because I
know, I
swear.
feel the same. You're such a bright woman, such intelligent conversation. I think that you know, I love it. But and maybe we can have a follow-up when your book comes out, or I don't know. I'd love to do more follow-up. I just love where those conversations go. They're such powerful activators for
Oh
us,
yeah.
for everybody listening. And um I kind of losing a little bit of the thread now. Where was I gonna go with it? Um you said
Talking
the
about you being Greek.
uh
We were talking about you being
Oh,
Greek.
yeah, I know what I was going to say. What I love, that's why I like to start this conversation by understanding a little bit about the journeys that people have had, right? Because I think that the world of coaching, once upon a time, it used to be a coaching of like skills and this and the courses we do and all that. And one of the things that I really love with the women that I'm working with, we're really activating sort of our codes, and we're activating like what's come through experience, what life has taught you, and what experience has kind of brought you to a particular point. And that's kind of led us to our activation, right? And I think the work that you do, from what you shared, feels very much connected to that root. And I feel very equally with the work I'm doing as well. And I really love that you embody that. And, you know, I can see that, you know, there's a lot of wisdom and there's a lot of kind of downloads and a lot of kind of really beautiful things coming through from this. I love this process of yours. So tell us a little bit about, Amy Lee, just being aware of time, about your work, like how people can connect with you. I know I'll put the, you know, all your links below this chat as well. You do one-to-one work, you do group work. What's the format that you're sort of facilitating at the moment?
So at this time, as we're recording this, because I don't know, when your recording schedule comes out, we are in the process. I have a free masterclass coming up, which is called Reclamation, where I'm going to delve into this whole idea about like who we actually are and who we think we are in terms of the way that society treats us versus like who we actually are and what we're here to do. And then I have a program that runs pretty regularly called Divine Discovery. It's an 8-week program where I walk people through step by step how to reconnect to the sacred masculine energy, how to really like get to know him, get to know his desires, and to really solidify that romantic relationship moving towards Eros Gamos, or that sacred marriage,
Beautiful.
really.
Lovely. Well, let's get this out now then, so that the people can come to your masterclass. Let's let them know about it, because it sounds very potent. Okay, great. So people know how to connect with you. You've got a sort of book that you're working on as well in the same time. And in terms of an end, pardon?
But you won't know it's me.
Oh yeah, well, we won't know, I guess. Right. So does that mean you won't promote it?
I'm gonna talk it over with Eros. He's my sacred masculine. I'm gonna see because he's helping me write it. So it's gonna be up to him.
Okay. I really love that. I love the mystery around it. I think there's something really juicy about this as well in itself. So, and for those who might be considering, what sort of is the entry point for women who are like, you know, I guess, who are not like thinking, oh, is this going to be for me, or something that they need to know that they might kind of like, I guess the masterclass, they'll get a feel of it, right? If they come to the masterclass.
Yep, and I also have a free 5-day masterclass that I did last summer. I think it's 5 days where we kind of walk through the whole concept of the inner masculine, and it's a little bit more high level, I think, than the Divine Discovery program is, but I can drop the link as well.
Sure. Yeah, no, that sounds lovely. Great. How I like to finish this interviews is asking women, how do they, is there something like a ritual, a habit, something that you have as part of your life that really you really value, that you really want to share with others? For me, I take my sacred baths. Water is my sacred element and it's the thing that activates me. What is it for you that you really swear by?
So my thing that I think really grounds me all the time is my aerogetic breath. So if I'm standing in the grocery store and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be late, there's 7 people in front of me or something like that, what I do is I just kind of, I guess in that case I'd be standing. I stand up, I let all the air out of my body, bring my belly to my spine. And the first thing I do is breathe in through my nose and I bring the air in through my sacral, through my womb space. And that is the masculine energy penetrating into my body, bringing abundance and joy and money and all the yummy things. So,
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
absolutely. And then I hold the energy of him, of it in my body and feel it penetrating all of the pieces of me, all the way down to my toes, all the way up to my head, and just hold the energy rather than just trying to get rid of it. And then I breathe through my open mouth in gratitude from the feminine. So,
Wow. So you
and I
go
just,
through an energetic eros gamos whilst you're waiting in like the supermarket queue. I love it. It's
it's
great.
amazing. It's
Why
amazing.
not? I love it. Emily, it's been such fun to chat to you. I really appreciated all your wisdom and your sharing and your depth and your intelligence. It's very juicy, very feminine. And
It's been a pleasure to be here, really.
thank you so much. And yes, thank you everybody for watching and we'll speak to you again soon. All the best.